Welcome to the Come Up Starter Kit, guys. My name is Shankar and I have a very special guest with me today, Glenn Campbell. Now, Glenn is the CEO of DeakinCo. To give you guys a bit of a rundown of DeakinCo, DeakinCo provides workplace solutions that assess and build workplace skills and capability for organisations. They cover three aspects, one being workplace credentials, the other being workplace learning, and the other workplace qualifications. Hopefully, Glenn, I've covered the most of it. Is there anything else that you can add?
Yeah, you have. Look, I want to focus in on those credentials because our professional practice credentials are formally recognising workplace skills and knowledge. What we've done is effectively change the order of things. Traditionally, what we do is we learn, then we assess, then we go out into the world. And business leaders know that's resulting in a less informed and skilled workforce. So what we've actually done is flip the order of things. We recognise that you learn in many different environments, including on the job. So we're now putting the assessment last. You learn, you do, then you assess. And so what we're doing now is putting the assessment focus on people's actual ability with their actual skill ability. And that's a much better model for workplaces.
Yeah, 100%.
And this is, yeah. So, look, we're really the first ones to market in this, and we're still really being the pioneer across the world in the model that we've brought out.
Yeah, right. Okay. No, I think that's a great initiative, especially when it comes to learning. You need to actually also do the doing, right? And then once you've done the doing, then you can be assessed.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant stuff. So, today I brought Glenn on to give us a bit of an insight about his career journey and his road to becoming a CEO. I know there's a lot of ambitious people in my network who are thinking, what is the roadmap to become a CEO and what does it take to become a CEO? So Glenn, thank you so much for finding time, especially out of your busy schedule and especially through these unprecedented times. I guess, firstly, how are you trying to stay sane and if at all during these unprecedented times?
Well, look, I've got the privilege of living in one of the most beautiful parts of Melbourne. I live adjacent to the Sherbrooke Forest, yeah. So my sanity is the native wildlife. Every day I've got, I can literally sit here and look out the window right here and see kookaburras, king parrots, cockatoos, currawongs, and if I stand out on the balcony and look down at the garden, I might be lucky enough to see a lyrebird. So,
yeah, you are definitely in a beautiful part of the world. I know that I go up there quite frequently, so I'm very envious. That's definitely the thing. But I guess that probably leads on to my next question. With such a momentous occasion that's happening at the moment, how do you sort of make sure to strive in uncertain times?
Yeah, look, it's really trying to keep my eyes across a variety of things. So one thing that I do is certainly look out for what I consider to be really good trusted news sources around what's happening. So, in Australia, the AFR, India, which is another one of our markets, at the Economic Times. Yeah. So, for me, it's important to keep on top of that, to understand what some of the leading companies are doing and thinking, because we know that what happens there starts to drive what happens in the economy.
Yeah.
The other part of this is just, it's really this constant perseverance and reviewing. I joked yesterday in a meeting that, a long-term plan at the moment was something that went for 3 months. So,
right.
That's about it at the moment. So it's just constantly focusing in and figuring out what's happening in the world and how is it that what we do can help with that situation. So one of the things we did at the moment was to pivot from our larger scale work with corporate Australia to start to focus on our skill uplift modules and learning opportunities and take those out at a really discounted price to the general public, because we realized And also with corporate, with a lot of businesses, they've got staff that they've either stood down or are at home with extra time on their hands, or people have been stood down or retrenched, and they want to upskill with really valuable skills to get the workforce. So what we do to focus in on what that current need is.
That's a very wonderful. Okay, great. All right, so I guess when we sort of kick into it, I want to sort of give the people a bit of a journey around yourself and sort of understand where you started off as. So I guess, what was your very first job?
My very first job when I was still in high school, if we want to go right there, but I will, because I think it's actually important. My first job in high school was actually a factory hand in a marine clothing factory. So really different. I didn't do the supermarket thing. I didn't do the Maccas or Hungry Jacks. That's what I did. And for me, that was a huge learning experience and really valuable. And I've taken that into my career because, not everyone works in a corporate environment. There's a lot of different types of work experience, and it's for me, it's really valuable to learn and understand a whole variety of different work environments. And I think that's what that opportunity gave me. It was certainly nothing that I saw as, it was a pocket money type of job. It wasn't something that I saw as a career, but it was a huge learning experience.
Okay. And then when you sort of moved from that and sort of got your first break into the corporate realm, what did that did you sort of know what you wanted to get into, I guess, when you first sort of came out of education?
As I think happens to everyone in school, you chop and change. You look back on that and you go, why in the world did I ever want to be that particular one? I won't say what it is because I don't want to offend anyone. Because it is a very honourable job, that particular one. But look, when I left uni, I really, when I left high school, I really was still uncertain what I wanted to do. I had two very different fields I wanted to look at. One was actually, in fact, social work, and the other one was looking more in a generalist management type of role. And I really didn't know where to go. So that sort of helped flavour where I took my career, my uni studies anyway. To try and keep both of those extremely diverse options open. But then when I got further into that, particularly that first role, I actually got much more interested in something that I never thought I would, which was public policy. So I actually was working in local government in a period, for those that are of my vintage, was the period of time when local government in Victoria was reduced from around about 176 or 210 councils down to the current 76. So that ended up not being an option for a career anymore because of the massive redundancies going on. So from there, my career sort of flipped into what was an opportunity that I thought sounded interesting, and that was to work at Melbourne University. Again, so one of the things in my career, I've never stuck, I haven't really, in particularly my early part of my career, I never stuck to a given industry. I changed multiple industries. So I was in local government, in waste management services. I went into a university in student administration. From there, I ended up in managing one of the teaching departments. Then I ended up in a student selection manager role. Then I was in a finance role. So it was a really varied, for me, that's important because it's given me the rounded skills from client services, from policy setting, from negotiation, stakeholder management, finance, really important, people management. So that breadth of experience to me is really important.
That's an interesting journey. So do you think that that's a key essential, I guess, to where you've come to now, getting all those sort of different industry or different industry understandings, and then it sort of helped you sort of when you go to new roles, you sort of have all these best practices.
Yeah, that's right. And I moved from Melbourne to Sydney for a while, and I worked in a government-owned enterprise in health and oncology services. So there was a huge learning curve, which look, working in a university, I had to learn things about streams of business that I didn't even know existed, and otolaryngology, which even today I still have trouble pronouncing it. So there's all these different possibilities, and one of the things that you find when you have a career like that is the way that different industries look at the exact same problem. And so you can actually bring, and I think that's perhaps it's an extension of group think, that as an industry, when we only recruit from within a given industry, we all think and same have been trained in the same way. But if we start to expand that out and bring in different ideas from different industries, we get different thought processes. So even when I left there, like I said, I was up in Sydney. I even worked for a gourmet food company. So, and again, that's a completely different experience where you start to. It's a different experience, but you can take the same sort of analytic work, like I did in student selection in a university, to analyse how do you minimise food wastage in retail stores. So it's that lateral thinking and the connecting of the dots that are not necessarily obvious. It's they're not numbered dots. You've got to figure out which ones join together to create the picture.
Yeah, right. Okay. Going. All right. So Glenn, I guess my next question would be, when did you realise you wanted to get into management? I know that you sort of mentioned that previously that management was one of the options that you thought was a viable option for you. But I guess, did you know that C-level suite was something that you wanted to get into as well?
Look, I'm not sure consciously I did. What has always fascinated me and got me excited is being able to connect the dots and connect dots that are not necessarily obvious. So they're not numbered. You've got to connect them to create your own story. And this is the great thing about having such a diverse background. I've given all the different skills I've had, I can actually apply those in different environments from one industry to the next industry. So, for example, when I worked in Sydney for a while in both a government-owned enterprise in health and oncology services, and even at Melbourne University, while I was there, I had to understand a variety of different departments in the sciences and medical field, including otolaryngology, which I still have trouble today trying to pronounce. So you then have to delve in and go, well, what is this? What do they do? What is oncology? What goes on in an oncology centre? How does that facility work? And how do I add value and contribute to that as a non-medical? But also, when I was in Sydney, I worked for a gourmet food company, and the skills that I used that had in other environments were helping me figure different things out. So, for example, one of the big issues for a food retailer is how do you minimise waste from your retail stores? Well, I actually used my experience in student selection at a university to figure out how you can use data to minimise food waste. So it's looking at those sort of lateral things. Issue for me is quite valuable and important, and that's what led me to think that where I need to be is in those positions where I've got that ability to think quite strategically and laterally to solve problems.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Very interesting, especially around the food wastage. When you so how did you go about figuring the path to becoming a CEO? So you've had all these different experiences. Did you know how to sort of get to becoming a CEO, or were there certain steps that you knew, okay, if I did this particular role, or if I worked in this particular industry, it would lead me to here? So I guess, yeah, how did you know how to get to become a CEO?
Look, I think early on in my career, it was about, that more traditional way of saying, well, what's my 12-month plan, my 2-year plan, my 5-year plan?
Yeah.
And I talked in more generic terms rather than industries. I talked about, my career plan in my early years was more about a description of the type of role, not I want to be this particular role in this particular organisation or industry.
Right.
And I've always encouraged people to think of it in those terms as well. And I think in today's world, that's even more important, because most of the jobs that are going to exist in 5 years don't actually exist yet. So don't think about wanting to be a particular role or title, but think about what are the characteristics of a job. Do you want to be working with people or not with people? What type of people? What type of, do you want to be selling products, or, what is it that actually gets you excited about a job?
Yeah.
And for me, that's where being able to work in environments where you have a passion is really important. I've worked in, like I might have said, but I've worked in universities, local government, waste management, public policy, food, retail, a factory, and the universities. So that's not a traditional career for someone.
Yeah.
But it is a career of the future.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting that going through all that. I think that's a huge point, especially around the passion side. If you can have that sort of liking towards an actual job, that's where you sort of excel. And then from there, you want to start learning more about sort of other jobs once you can solidify yourself in that current role that you're in.
Yeah, that's right. And, for me, in becoming a CEO, it's something where I almost, fell into it, so to speak. So I've become quite a big believer in the which is an old adage of opportunity knocks, take it. So, it was a position that came up that I wasn't actually looking for.
Right.
But when the role came up for the CEO of DeakinCo, I knew about DeakinCo, of course, having worked in the education sector.
Right.
And it was a role that I loved what they were doing. I thought it was absolutely cutting edge, which it was. It was, and still is,
Yeah.
something I wanted to be part of. So whereas at that point in time, I was actually setting up my own management consultancy business, and enjoying doing what I was doing.
Right.
But this was just, for me, it was too good of an opportunity to let go.
Right.
And that's why I put my hat in the ring for it. So I think that's another part of it. And by knowing, instead of saying, this is where I want to go, and thinking more broadly about, well, this is the type of spectrum, it's not, I want to be in Paris, it's, I want to be in Europe. It's that sort of a story. So then you plan your holiday and you take those opportunities. It's the same thing in a career, to say, actually, this is sort of the things that I want to do. And then that way you've got that bigger spectrum of possibilities.
Right, I like that. Okay. And so now that you're in the position that you are in, and building sort of teams around you and getting that right type of people, what do you sort of now look for when you are to bring on new talent to your organization, or who do you want within your circle when you're building out teams?
So and again, one of the things that attracted me to DeakinCo is that I'm big on on human-centered skills, or soft skills, as we more commonly call them in Australia. For me, they're absolutely transferable, and it's not just me saying that. The OECD, the World Economic Forum, all the consulting firms, everyone, they're the things that can't be automated. They're the things that truly make us human and truly make a difference. And so I'm interested in people particularly that can communicate, can collaborate, can problem solve, And the new one that I've been recently added is people who are digitally literate. And that's about, all the different types of possibilities. Look what we're all doing. How, 12 months ago, how many people used Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, Google Meet. I had to remember the right one there. We're all really familiar with a whole lot of online platforms now that in the past, most of us might have had experience with one or two of them, and that was it.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing I'm talking about with digital literacy. Someone that's prepared to go, right, how can we use that technology? How does that technology assist us in doing what we need to do? So they're probably the four big ones that I look at: communication, collaboration, problem solving, and digital literacy. The problem solving one's important. I don't necessarily want someone to just go out on their own all the time and solve the problem.
Yeah.
But if people have a problem, an employee that is more valuable is the person that says, hey, we've got this problem and I've been thinking about it, and one of these options might actually help us out.
Right.
That's a more valuable employee than the one that just keeps coming to you and saying, this doesn't work.
So someone that is able to not only identify a problem, but also come back with a solution as well.
That's right. It may not be the right solution. That's not the point. It's that they've thought about it, and they've actually also, which is where the communication bit comes in, they've communicated about it. It's not just well, this doesn't work, but I'm just going to keep on doing my job.
Yeah.
They're the types of skills that are really, really valuable.
Yeah.
If I'm, in some ways, if I'm wanting to employ an accountant or a learning designer, well, there's some fundamental technical skills that they need to have. That's why they're applying for the job. But the added value is the way that they can communicate, they can work with others, they can solve problems, and their ability to flip between different types of technology, not just in their technical sphere, right, but in the broader business environment.
Okay. So that's, I guess, when you're now in a position of a CEO, and if people were wanting to sort of become a CEO, what would be the 3 tips that you would provide someone that they would essentially need? And that could be on the soft skills as well.
It's a good question. 3 things they need. Look, they certainly need to have a very strategic mindset. They need to be able to both not just lead people, but also empower them. Those 2 things go hand in hand. And the third thing, I think, is being able to deliver results. So, as a CEO, that's fundamentally what it's about. And, you may have to deliver a result that either you may not necessarily agree with, but your board has told you that you need to do that. Right. You need to do that, and you can't, and you have to do it, and do it as though you mean it. Yeah. And if you can't, then leave. That's a harsh way to put it, yeah, but that's the reality. And at times you have to make really hard decisions that are in the best interest of the company, because the company is your prime concern. And that might mean that, you're not necessarily going to be, the decision is not going to be liked. But if you built and you can lead and you've built up that level of trust with your organization, whilst they won't like the decision, at least they still respect you.
Yeah. Okay. Those are some really, really good tips. So you're now, as a CEO, what does an average day look like for you? What does it, do you get up at 6 a.m. in the morning or 5 a.m. in the morning? How does your day sort of look?
Well, there's the post-pandemic, there's the current pandemic time, yes, there's the pre-pandemic times,
yes,
and then I have no look like post-pandemic. But look, if I look at it, and there's little variances between what I used to do and what I do now.
Yeah.
So my day used to start. Well, actually, my day still starts at the same time. So I get up at 5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
The difference now is that instead of driving an hour and a half to get, or an hour in the morning to get to the office, I sit on the couch with my 3 cats and have a relaxed cup of tea.
Yes.
And read the news.
Yeah.
So that's the start of my day, is always getting the news headlines in, both business news and, but I focus more on societal news of what's happening in society and politics in the morning, with some of those big key new business headlines. Really enjoying my relaxing tea in the morning. So I've switched from coffee to tea at the moment. So that's another change. Whereas it used to be coffee, it's now tea.
More relaxed.
Also, helps having some beautiful, lovely tea direct from India. That's one of the advantages of doing business in India.
Yes.
So that's the start of the day. When I jump online, I normally my day starts between 7 and 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's usually my time to just have a quickly relook, reprioritize what I need. Again, I use Trello to keep track of projects and work. And I can set that up the way that I want it. And over time, I might change the way that's set up, because it's so easy to use and to change the way that you might want to think about things. So that's important. Me, working in Australia and India means that the day is actually quite long. So I try to prioritize the morning for Australian business to keep free my afternoons for Indian business.
Right.
So, because the Indian day really, that kicks in from around about 12, really about 1 o'clock.
Right.
So most of my Indian meetings can be usually between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. So I try to keep that as free as possible. Mm-hmm. And the other important thing that I do is making sure I block out 3 half days where I can focus on whether it's client work or organizational corporate work, without interruption.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, the rest of my day is free. The advantage at the moment, being working from home all the time, is that I actually can get more done. I'm not traveling 2.5 hours, and we can actually see more clients. Look, yesterday alone, I met 4 clients in 3 different cities in 2 different states. Now, I'd never be able to do that normal. So in some ways that's working a little bit better. Yeah. But you still need those face-to-face meetings at some point. Now, some of those, I actually haven't met the person face-to-face I met them face-to-face like this, yes. But not in the physical form. So it's an interesting time we're in. But it isn't, at least in my line of business, not preventing continuing on with business, but we do it in a different way. So, but look, even prior to the pandemic, a big part of my day was spent in meetings. Yeah. But to keep my sanity, I need to have those half days blocked out so that I can actually follow up from the meetings.
Yeah. How are you finding now especially with the client side of it all? How are you enjoying that sort of, the Zoom meetings and all the Google Hangouts and stuff like that?
It's really interesting. I think we first started by thinking this isn't going to work, because you don't have that physical presence and ability to build rapport. But we're actually finding we're building rapport in different ways, because everyone at the moment can see my lounge room, and we all get to see that. We get to, at the moment, it's the personal touches. We can see the kids studying, or we can hear them playing Fortnite in the next room. These are all real examples. Or that we hear the plumber drilling because one of the kids has just run over the garden tapping on the BMX. And the other thing, and look, everyone knows that if they're on a Zoom call with me between 3 and 3:30, without fail, at least one of my cats will walk in front of the screen and possibly sniff the camera. So, we're actually, it's bringing in this personal element. Most of us are, a lot of people now are dressing more relaxed as well. So these things are bringing a more of a human element to business. And that's something that I hope we continue with as we get on the other side of this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of new ways of working there will be put in place, after this all happens, right? So, no, it's exciting times, also scary times as well. But what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of being a CEO? And on that flip side, what is the most challenging aspect of being a CEO?
Yeah, the most rewarding for me is definitely seeing growth in people.
Yeah.
That to me is fantastic. So whether it's seeing their career progress or seeing them just overcome a particular challenge, learn a new skill, whatever that is, sealing a new client, in whatever it might be, that to me is the most valuable and rewarding part of this job.
Yeah. Right.
On the other side of it, it's sort of a toss up between. Look, it can be really lonely at the top. It's true, because the people that and this in this role it's a little bit easier. In my last role, it was harder because my network of people, my personal network of friends were all my clients. Whereas in this role, there is at least a level of separation now.
Right.
So it makes it a little easier to pick up the phone and talk to someone about an issue that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
But it can get lonely at the top. But I think the other part of that is that it's about making those hard decisions. That you, as someone that really values and loves seeing how people grow, it's really hard making a decision that might impact on that for them. And in this day, and particularly at this time, we make lots of those. In changing the direction of a business, which is what I was brought in to do.
Yeah.
Again, I had to make decisions that were based primarily on the best interest of the business. Was not necessarily the best interest of the person, but it's then about saying, how do we help that person find what's right for them?
Yeah. Okay. And I guess lastly, to wrap it up, in terms of you and DeakinCo, what can we expect for the future?
Look, we're really focusing in DeakinCo around capability development, because for us, and there's a lot of research about this, the way to solve organizational problems is through capability.
Yeah.
It's how do we build that capability up? How do we measure it? And an actual capability in the organization in the right levels. So I think we'll certainly see us create more capability mapping, more assessments that we'll create in emerging specialist skills. We've got 9 human-centered skills, 4 leadership qualities. We assess at 5 different organizational levels. So that's one of the things we'll do. But from another perspective, it's, I've always seen that the best way to do business now is around that ecosystem model, or the platform model, as your Spotify, your iTunes, your Apple Store, whatever that model might be.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing as well. So we'll have more partnerships, both in the design of what we do, but also the delivery, because keeping a small, agile organization is really important to me. But why replicate things that others do better? So why not partner with them and create something that's even better through the combined power of multiple specialists? So I think that's what we can see more of as we come out. We've put together a particular program that we just launched this week around a training for COVID workplace readiness.
Okay.
And that program, it was something that we saw an absolute need for. It's an animation with closed caption text, regular quizzes throughout that package. So that's a really important piece for us at the moment. And look, we want to recover our costs. We're not trying to make money out of this, but we want to actually just get that out there so that, and some of the organisations that have already gone through it, what it's doing is helping them make sure and have that added certainty that their staff know factual information, how you respond to it, how you create a safer, not a safe, but a safer working environment, and how do you build up the confidence in your employees and your customers that they know that when they go to that workplace, the people in it understand better work, better hygiene practices, better work practices to reduce the spread of a virus. So that's a really interesting piece that we've come up with some with partners, the AI group and a number of others that have all come together to say that this is an absolute need, and no one's helping.
Okay. For people that don't know, who would DeakinCo audience be? So who would this benefit? Who would your clients be, and what sort of industries, or do they cover across the board?
We are a true believer that, particularly when it comes to human skills, they cross all industries. So, we've got clients in from banking to retail to industry and manufacturing and construction. So it doesn't matter, because the evidence that you create on a capability is industry agnostic. A good communicator can work in any environment. Yes. A good problem solver can work in any environment. It's just that it's the content that changes, not the capability. Yeah. But we work primarily direct with business, and particularly with decision makers. Yep. It's with the C-suite, with your HR or transformation teams, where there is a business problem that needs to be resolved, and the way that it's been done in the past isn't working anymore. We've focused our effort around what does the future of a workplace look like, and we all know that future is actually now. But how do we have the right set of capabilities to improve our customer service, to respond to emerging technology? How do we transition our workforces to the new and emerging skills that are needed? Cybersecurity is an example where everyone wants people, but there's not enough in the marketplace. Yeah. But if you actually look at the people you've already got, you could train them with the gap that they need quicker than buying someone else and getting rid of them. And you've already got them on board. They already know your business. So there's a whole variety of different things there. And it's for people that need to help with that transformation of their business, whether it's a small transformation or a huge one. That's the audience that we work with.
Okay, perfect. Making some huge waves. Okay. Glenn, thank you so much for your time. You've been wonderful. You've definitely given some golden nuggets to the audience tonight. But yeah, look, we'll definitely be in touch.
Fantastic. All the best. We'll catch you soon, Shankar.
Cheers, Glenn.
Great.